Jordan, welcome back to the podcast. How are you?
Good. Thank you for having me back.
Oh, well, I think we were chatting a few weeks ago and we were looking at some of the results from past episodes, and you were one of the most downloaded. So I was like, of course, my listeners want more of you. So we're back.
The people that they want.
big, like get ready for a big episode, guys. I'm really excited for this one because you and I have talked about this high level and then we were like, don't talk about it again. Let's save it for the podcast. So I feel like I'm excited. There's a lot of emphasis on this episode. So we are going to be talking about niching. Should we niche down? Do we niche down? How do we do it? Sales, marketing, business. And I'm excited because I don't feel like either of us know how this is going to go, which makes me extra excited. Niching down your marketing, do you want to kick us off with your thoughts of niching?
Yes, like Harriet said, this is going to be interesting. I'm a little bit nervous as to how this is going to go. Yeah, I think for me as my business, and obviously I can come at it from two angles. One is me as a business and one is the clients that I do marketing for. So me as a business, I have never been one to niche down. If you look at my current client roster, it is the most mixed bag of totally different things that you could think of all kind of smooshed together. And I can fully see the kind of pros and cons of each. But for me, like there's so many reasons why I don't niche down. We can definitely jump into those.
Tell me why.
I mean, many reasons. I think number one is like I am a very easily bored person. I find if I do too much of the same thing, even service related, like if at the moment I'm doing a heap of branding and web projects and I'm like, I want to run some paid ads. Like, I'm over the branding. I need to do some kind of like Excel spreadsheet thinking. And so I find if I do one thing for too long or too much of the same thing, like especially being a little bit creative, it's just really hard to keep being creative for the same thing over and over and over and over. I think with advertising and marketing, and maybe this is where it like differs a little bit to sales, not saying sales is not creative, but when you're trying to think of headlines and ads and branding and making something look cool, like at the moment I'm trying to do it for kind of three similar businesses at the same time, and it is so hard to try to go, how can I take these three businesses and come up with a totally different brand for each one, even though the brief is basically the same. Like it's really, really hard
in a set period of time. And I think that's so interesting. I know you weren't saying that salespeople aren't creative. I heard that. Interesting. So my dad and my brother are both creative. So my dad's an architect. My brother designs cars and motorbikes and is doing incredible things around the world with electric motorbikes. And the thing I've always found with him is he loves a lion. Like is definitely a night owl. I feel like I put creative buckets in as like they go to bed late and they get up late. That's probably just my brother. Hi, Toby. And I think then from that is that I've then always gone, well, I'm not creative because I can't draw. You wouldn't want me to paint something. You definitely wouldn't want me to design your logo. So for me, I just put myself in the non-creative bucket. But over the last few years, I've probably put myself back in the creative bucket because I'm having to be creative around strategies and what we're doing. And so the reason why I'm showing that, Jordan, is because I think for me, I've always gone, I have to do this and I have to do it on this day at this time and finish it, which in sales, you probably could do. But then I've found, because I then create strategies and find different ways of how we go to market, that I have to be creative. And that's really hard to do if I'm not in the mood or in the zone. And yesterday, I felt like it was like walking through treacle, like trying to get the thing done that I had to get done. I still haven't finished it. And so I think that's really interesting. But I guess then for the niche bits, you were saying there, like you get a bit over it, a bit bored of like doing the same thing. And then that's why you switch it around. What do you think that's done for your business? Positively, let's go there. Like, what's it done for you positively?
I think to me, and I'm going to kind of answer this, but not answer this, but I'll do the best. I think how I see it as a massive win for me is that, like, even though they're all totally different industries and different businesses, you can take a learning from each one and apply it to something else. Like, you can always apply a learning or apply what's worked, what hasn't worked. And what I like is that it's not like I'm applying something from this to like a competitor, or I'm not kind of saying like, oh, this worked really well for, I don't know, like this pet company. So I'm going to find another pet company and I'm going to do the exact same ad and the exact same headline because it worked, but I can apply that to another industry and the same thinking. I feel like that has actually been kind of like a superpower to be like, literally yesterday I was doing an audit for a big photography brand. And when I was doing the audit, all of the social competitors, it was like the same thing, the same thing, the same thing, the same thing. Because there's obviously like a formula that works for photography brands on social. And I was kind of like, oh, when you're just applying the same thing, you end up with like every single client looks and feels the same in a marketing sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, that's kind of like, it's even something that I put, if I'm pitching to someone, is like I do across a lot of different stuff. So I can pull learnings from any industry. I can pull learnings from any size business. And I can find all these different things that work. And so it kind of like widens my almost like inspiration scope beyond just the industry they're in. In saying that, I have a really good friend that has a marketing agency, specializes in like one niche, and he does amazingly. And because he's actually getting the learnings from that industry, he's getting like better and better and better and better in that industry. Short answer, I don't know what's better. Yeah, it's
I guess then, so then for people that are coming to work with you, the benefit for them is that you're not pigeonholed in that one, and it's not like, oh, I've done it here. I guess that's then pigeonholed, like niching in, like you haven't necessarily chosen to niche in an industry. But then let's talk about like niching in a service, because you said before around like you know, if you do branding and then you do website, and we've had these conversations. You did a post about niching, and I was like, yeah, I think you said $1 for everyone that said it. I was like, I think I owe you a couple of dollars. The conversations. But when we've talked, because you and I share a lot about our businesses and what we do, and obviously we work together in a lot of instances, what, like from an offering perspective, you've chosen not to niche. You've not chosen to niche for branding and website. You've not niched on ads. You've not niched on the, like, what, like, why have you chosen that, like, not to niche, like not niching industry? Why this?
Why, Jordan?
Please tell me.
I think, and I don't necessarily think this answer would work for every type of business. What I have found in the last, especially probably 2, 3, 4 years, is that people, when they want marketing assistance, they want a one-stop shop. They don't want to have to go talk to one person for a website and then someone for a brand, a brand project, and then someone can do their paid ads and then someone else to do their SEO, because a lot of the time, like, they don't really know what they don't know. And so they're kind of coming to you being like, hey, I just need you to do, like, normally the brief is, I need help with marketing. And marketing to them is just this umbrella term that's like, sell things. So they don't know what they don't know. And what I found was when I tried to kind of be like, I only do this, they're like, oh, but who's going to do that? And then it's like, oh, well, do you build out this kind of big ecosystem, which, I've kind of tried to do, or do you hire staff? And so that you have kind of one specialist staff member for each thing? Do you just refer them to people? And I just found, for me, like, the best results that I got was when I could be like, look, I can actually do all of this for you. Here's kind of the menu, what's going to work for you. And like, first step for me is always almost like a diagnosis of what they need. And then I can build them the best kind of like, here's the solution, here's the building blocks to what you need, and I can deliver it all. But interesting, because I know that you, over the last couple of years, have almost done the opposite and like slimmed down.
I'm like, cut it right down. Like, here's the thing that we do. Just so interesting on that, because I think and I would probably say, like, when I've spoken more so to smaller businesses, and especially when I started the business, I was helping smaller businesses through, the workshops and masterminds and all those things that I kind of threw myself into. And I was like, I'll go this direction. I'll still do some tech, but I feel like I need a break from that. And now I've come back, full circle. I'm back in the zone. But I feel like with that one was that a lot of people, they were looking at like what was right for them, not necessarily what was right for their client. And conversations around, I want to earn more money, so I'm just going to increase my prices, rather than what value are your clients getting and how can you therefore do it. And I think that's been really interesting, is that everything you've talked about there is, my clients needed this. They come to me for this requirement. Therefore, I give them this thing. And I think that's what I love about you, Jordan, because you're so for your clients. And I've never seen anyone work so hard and so passionately for their clients than with you. And that's why I think you and I work so well together. And I think then, like, looping back to that in terms of what I've done, is that for me, yes, I've gone from like everything of like, oh, you need sales this, you want an audit, you want this, you want that. And that, for me, I really zoned in from December last year, because I was like, there's something needs to shift. And for me, I feel like, because I'm dealing with so many different challenges and different products and services, although I've niched in the tech cyber industry, I do still have quite a few clients that are actually not. I just don't tell you about them. So you can't judge me when I say niche, but they've been with me for so long and they still fit the model. And we still have an impact on the results for them. And so I'd probably say maybe 10 to 15% are not, but I probably call them more like passion projects. And that's probably how you would describe how you decide what you do and how you do it. And so for me last year, we stripped all that back. So we've got 2 core offerings, the sales training and enablement and development for strategy. And then we've got done for you. So lead development, where we develop leads on your behalf, turn them into meetings. And for me now, the reason why, for me, how that's benefited me, which in turn has benefited our clients, is that for me, I'm really like, we're so focused, zoned in on those 2 key offerings. And although they feel like they're just, oh, that's one thing and that's another thing, there's like 5 different things that come under training and enablement. And then under lead development, we've got different offerings. And for me, I feel like it keeps it exciting because I could be working with Gigam on one day and then Netscope another and then Tenable another and then somebody, and then a couple of managed service providers. So that probably gives me the different scopes of requirement. And I also know that to sell in that industry, you have to know what you're doing. And that's almost where, like, I won a lot of business, or have won a lot of business over the years because they've worked with somebody that wasn't a specialist in the industry. It hasn't worked and they've gone, right, we should probably stick in the industry. And then that's where it's come through. And so that still say I still get, tanning businesses that want to grow their membership. I still get, accountants and lawyers and all of that. And so when I get them, I really nail down in terms of can they still fit within what we're delivering and how we're delivering. And I think now as well, because we've got the team, I need the team to be able to deliver without me doing everything. And that's also been a shift. And I think then with the team, it's so much easier to get them on board with one offering than it is to be like, here's the 17 things that we do. And some of these I just wing and work out how it's going to go because I know how to do it. And I think that's been my shift over the last probably 12, 18 months as well.
Yeah, it's actually what you said is kind of interesting about having to be a specialist. And maybe this is depending on who kind of comes to you because you're such a specialist in so many of these areas and you have the knowledge. So someone can come to you and be like, hey, Harriet, I need you to, pick up the phone and talk to someone and you know what to talk about. Like you've got that knowledge already, whether for me, and I'm having like light bulb moments while we're on this call. For me, I probably rely a lot more on the client. We have a big briefing process. I'm like, okay, tell me this. Like, what do you think about this? So I kind of have almost like a step requirement to learn about each company first and understand it and understand the customer and probably rely a little bit more on the client themselves to do that understanding and help me understand, which is, maybe it's kind of like a annoying step. Maybe that's a little tick on the niching down, side. But I do think like that's an interesting point of, if you're obviously an industry specialist or a, particular type of business specialist, you're not going to have to do that whole briefing process to really understand it. You're going to be like, yep, cool. I've worked for a company like yours 20 times before. I know exactly what to say. I know the customer. I know how X, Y, Z.
Yes. Yeah. And that's it because the end user for the clients that we work with is pretty much the same. Like for all the tech and cyber and SaaS offerings, tends to be a CTO, a CIO, sometimes a CFO, sometimes a CEO, depending on how small it is, and then IT manager. And I think then that, like you said there, is that go to market will be quite similar in terms of how we're going to speak. But then the message is what then we shift around in terms of what's the hook, what's the ask, what's the use case. And so I think we do still rely on the client because we need to gather their internal insights because they've been doing this for 10, 20 years. I've had external exposure, or if they're lucky enough, I've sold their product previously, which is a lot of clients, which it's just given me good memories of selling their products and services. And so I guess then I wonder then the downside for I'm thinking from the work we've done together. The thing I love is that we were on a call a couple of days ago with a client who were doing sales and marketing as a service for, and the marketing pieces we're doing lead gen, demand gen through ad campaigns, aren't we? And then we're doing the follow-up of an event plus the leads that are being generated through the work that you're doing. And the thing I really liked is that you shared an idea of what's going on at an event, and it was using examples of what others have done, but there's no harm in sharing that because they're not competing. Whereas if I'd seen something at one of the organizations I work with, I can't share that data or information to say, go do this. So I'm then going to have to look outside the industry to look at different things and then bring it in. And I guess then that's why the extra 15% of my non-niched clients works, because then I can see what's helping them and then cross-reference. Because for me, I think like sales is sales. Like it's conversations, it's people, it's connecting problems with outcomes, regardless of who they are. I've just chosen the message for the market to go in that way. And the impact that we've had since that has been massive for the market awareness for who we are. And that's why I was winning then as a marketer. So you've then got a client that's come to you and has got all of these different offerings. Do you then explain to them the two differences between doing it? Like, I'm intrigued. I don't know the answer to this.
Yes. I typically, because and to give context, so as a business, I'm really fortunate that I have basically built the business completely on referrals. So I don't have to do advertising, which is super fortunate and great. So I think that's probably afforded me the luxury of not ever having to be like, okay, who am I actually speaking to? How am I going to go out there? What's the message? Because I haven't had to do that. Maybe I would have to niche down if that was the case. But for my clients, especially in advertising, and you now know, like obviously we can target ads. And if you come to me and you're like, no, we talk to everyone. I'm like, well, we can't target everyone with an ad that's relevant to everyone. It doesn't work. You're just going to make an ad that's relevant to no one. So you at least, as a step one, need to go, okay, like who are my 3 core audiences? What are their pain points? What are their challenges? Like, what can I help them with? What services do we provide to those people? And realistically, it's kind of like, old school, like 80% of your business is going to come from 20% of your audience base and all that kind of stuff. It's like, okay, if you could just make this business for one of those audiences, and we optimize our website for that audience, we optimize our creative, our social media. So many people are like, oh, but I need to talk to all these different people on social media. And you're like, yeah, well, you're not going to grow a following because you're just going to end up with this like mishmash of content that doesn't make any sense. So yes, I know that it's very,
Hypocrite.
hypocritical of me. I was like, hypothesis, hypocritical of me. But again, I know why that is. That's because I don't necessarily have to do marketing for myself. If I really did rely on marketing to generate leads for me, then I honestly think I would probably have to niche down. Even I don't necessarily think I would ever be a person to niche down by industry, but I think probably niching down by like business type, like saying like, I only work for startups or I only work for businesses over X amount of revenue, and catering everything for that. I think I would have to do that because nothing would make sense and I would never get a lead otherwise.
Yeah, and I think then that's it, because then I'm trying to think of like your posts on then socials and LinkedIn. I love your LinkedIn posts, and they're always fun, and I'm like, yes, I want to read this post, and they're not. And actually, on reflection, I probably didn't think about this before. You've got Green Thumb Threads, which you've just launched, and then you've got then all like the insights to do with different elements of marketing. And although it all comes under that umbrella, and as a non-marketer, I would say, like I look at marketing as an umbrella. I'm like, that just get me to market. I probably think of marketing differently. I'm like, get me to market, get me some names, and then I'll sell them. Like that's obviously how you and I work together. I'm then thinking then that like for the way then that you show up on socials is then harder, would then be hard if you're niching down. Because I remember when LinkedIn's always been my happy place, but I remember on Instagram, I was part of the Brooke Villanovich like group. And I remember there, her saying that, speak to think about who's at the end of their phone, who's watching, who's playing your stories. And it's the same thing of what I teach in sales of like, who's at the end of the phone, what do they care about? And what language would they use? And what similar organizations have we dealt with that we know about? And so whenever I've done stories or content, I'm always thinking like, who do I want this to resonate with? But then at the same time, I still think I've got a couple of different people they're engaging with to get this across the line. So then it's like, well, then I'm a non-niche when it comes to talking, but then I have to niche because I'm thinking of the right person. And now nobody can keep up with what on earth we're talking about because even I'm confused about whether I should be niching or not.
I thought you need like a whiteboard behind you with like all the things you're
I
saying.
really do. I should have zoned in behind me.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's
so
true,
interesting.
Yeah, because like I think about, I do need like, if you have a look at my LinkedIn content, like I know the goal for that is basically to position me as an authoritative figure in the marketing world. And my audience on LinkedIn is kind of agencies. Like I get a lot of agency work from LinkedIn where I'm kind of consulting for them or training their staff, bigger brands, and it's more like my peers, like other marketing professionals. So it's like, I share a lot about Green Thumb Threads and the learnings from this kind of ecom business that I started like very transparently, because I'm like, oh, other marketing people would love to read this. It's super interesting, hopefully. But then on Instagram, I kind of more taught to like that small business owner, that DIY marketing. It's like, here's a quick explainer of this. Here's kind of what you need to know this week. Like, here's some news and updates from, Meta. Like, it's almost kind of not your marketer. It's the DIY marketer who just fell into it because they're a small business owner. And so I do kind of niche the content that way.
And then are you emailing? Do you email people?
I email people once a month. I do a monthly newsletter on LinkedIn, and I do a version for that I send out on email and put on our website.
And how do you position that on email?
Similar to our position on LinkedIn, it's just kind of like, hey, popping into your inbox, here's my marketing thoughts, here's some cool campaigns I've seen, here's, different things I've seen throughout the month. For me, it's not a huge, interestingly, and like with all social, a lot of people are passive viewers, and someone will get in contact. They're like, oh yeah, I've been getting your emails for the last 4 months. And you're like, danger of like, I don't know, reply. Like, hey,
Tell
love this
me you
email.
read me.
So I think people do read it and people are interested in it. But a lot of that email list comes from the free downloads on my website. And that typically is kind of like your DIY marketer. A lot of the people that do my workshops then go and like download stuff on the website and the templates. So I send it out on email just to kind of hit that audience. But like, in all honesty, I probably underutilize email. I could probably use it more than I do.
Yeah, interesting, because I wasn't sure. I'm pretty sure you're obviously, I know you have a database, but I wasn't sure how you were approaching that. And I guess then interesting because you've got clear messages for different types of audiences, and interesting because we've got, if I relate what we do in a similar sense of, we've got people that own the business, that run the sales team, that run or own the function, because we deal with a lot of global businesses. And they own that revenue function, they own that sales function, they own that marketing function. And then I've then got the smaller organizations that might be selling the technologies on behalf, like as a reseller or a partner. And so they're going to be having, they're going to have different challenges. And then I've then got salespeople. So I've got salespeople that listen to the podcast, but I've got leaders that listen to the podcast. And I find that really challenging to work out what to say, and that's why I think because I predominantly only really use LinkedIn, although we have other platforms. I mean, we've obviously got this podcast, we've got YouTube channel, and then it's like a plug for me here. I've got a YouTube channel, and then we've then got, LinkedIn, which is what I run, my personal LinkedIn, and then I've got the business account, which is run by the team. If I then think of the other so we've got Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, and I couldn't tell you what is on there right now because I don't do it. And interesting. So I want to get off Instagram. Like, that's question. I've had this discussion internally. I'm like, do we get rid of LinkedIn? Sorry, not LinkedIn. Oh my gosh. Do we get rid of Instagram? And the feedback has been, well, why don't we use it to promote to salespeople who are your everyday, like they may own a small business, they may be thinking about starting a sales team, or they're a salesperson, and let's help them. And that was really my mission when I started the business, was I wanted to help originally it was small, like I wanted to help small businesses because they are the ones that fail because they don't know how to sell. And if we took every business, there's some structural things, there might be money issues, but ultimately all of those issues could be combated if you have the ability or the skill set to pick up the phone. And then if I then pull that backwards, then it's like, okay, well, if we just promoted the free stuff, the podcast, the YouTube channel on Instagram, that's the use of it. But for me, I just want to forget that it exists, because we don't generate anything through that. Like we get maybe one inquiry like every now and again, because it's not our audience. Whereas LinkedIn, I had 5 messages just yesterday. And I was like, oh, I didn't realize I had all these messages. And, I'm on there all the time. And as we know, we had a little blip on LinkedIn, which freaked me out for a minute. And I can clarify we're back, and I'll tell you about that in a bit. But I think then with that piece is then my LinkedIn is my lead generator. That's where people are, and they are either more established salespeople, people that don't want to be doing the job that we do, which is lead development. And they're like, we're too busy doing this. Hey, boss, bigger, person above me, can you engage? Or it's those people looking ways to grow and scale their business. And so I think that's quite an interesting view of where we show up, but then also how we have to think about who's there and is it worth it? Because for me, if it was just me and I was solely responsible for posting, I just wouldn't bother on Instagram because our audience isn't there. But then our audience is at LinkedIn. So it's then also knowing where they are. And what I love about what you shared there is that you've got 2 really clear audiences that are both engaged. So do both. And if it's not, then kind of pull back on one and go into another. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. And I think like, I mean, you could kind of put this in the topic of like niching down. It's, niching down your own business of like what you're putting time and effort into in a marketing sense. Because I think like, honestly, I feel the same about Instagram. Every time I have to post on Instagram, I'm like, oh, this was so annoying. I do it enough for everyone else. I don't want to do it for me. But, and I can hand on heart say like, yeah, similar to you, like LinkedIn, amazingly generated for me. And most of my work comes from there and referrals. I would be very, very surprised if, even people that say like, oh yeah, because I follow you on Instagram, they're there because I don't know, someone told them or, whatever it may be, or they've come to a workshop. So they're already technically a customer or client. So for me, like it doesn't move the needle on the business from a revenue perspective, but it kind of proves that I know what I'm talking about. And if someone goes there, they're like, oh yeah, cool. Like she's on the pole. She knows all the things that are happening in marketing, shows that I know how to build a community. Like it's kind of, it'd be the same if someone watched you sit on the phone and they're like, oh, right, Harriet does know what she's doing. For me to have an Instagram, it makes sense because it shows that I know what I'm doing. So look, I do give you permission to get rid of your Instagram, but I do think there is value in showing it, and I've seen heaps of kind of that content of actually helping people, like not this, but here's 3 things you need to think about when you pick up the phone. That kind of educational, valuable content. If you had a huge community of people that follow you for that content and you can push them to the podcast, it's more social proof. Like, yeah, and I have 100,000 people on Instagram where I help them, date every single day. I send them sales tips. Like that's a huge selling proposition for a business. Even if those 100,000 people don't convert themselves, that's going to help you on the other side of your business.
Yes. And it's that social proof, isn't it, that comes back to, so that even though the client's on there, if somebody is searching, they have a quick look and they're like, oh, validated. You've been posting for a while, you're there. And that's probably always been the pull bit of like, oh, we've done it, we've been present. And I think you can tell it's not a core focus because we grew the followers. I don't know, it's not a high number, but I remember when we grew them, we were like, yes, like we got to this stage. But then when I then look at LinkedIn, I'm like, I've got over 5,000 people that follow me versus my Instagram. But that showed that for those 5,000 people, probably at least 70% are my ideal audience. And then the others are probably people that I used to sell to over the years that are still kind of watching. And they're often the ones that will still comment. And, and if I bump into them, they're like, oh, I saw you doing this. And that's awesome, to get that feedback, I guess, as well. But yeah, I think with the niching bit, the other thing that I look at with niching for sales is that, and this is always something that people, especially salespeople, if salespeople are doing it, obviously my team know how we build it and why we do it, and they're fully on board. If I'm teaching somebody new and we're going into a team, I always focus on niching on a very specific technology use case outcome. And we use Replicate Your Ideal Clients as a framework. And then we focus on an industry. So I would say law firms, I always use law firms as an example. Everyone knows them. Like law firms, they have a problem because they have to keep data for over 7 years, like, as an example. And then where do they keep it? And then they've got costs, they've got risk, they've got compliance. And everyone's like just zoned out, like boring, show about compliance. So the message there is our go-to-market is, hey, we've done this cool thing with law firms in your industry. So now you're like, oh, cool, you understand me. Then we go into then a core use case with a core outcome. Would love to explore how you're currently doing it. And I remember like the last group I taught, which was a few months ago in Sydney. And I remember somebody asked, they were like, yeah, but what if they don't one little thing that we've gone into them with? Well, if they don't need it, they'll either ignore it. So let's say we've sent email first and then we're going to do a call. They'll ignore it, which we're going to call anyway and find out more. But it's a conversation starter. Right. And every time this works, this is what still works in the industry from an outbound perspective. And this comes back to what we said before, which is if we want to market and target, we have to go in very specific. We have to speak to that one person. And then what I then find is if it's not, they'll either tell us, or when we pick up the phone, they'll be like, we're all good for that. Awesome. Who's currently doing that for you? How are you currently navigating that? It opens the conversation, whether it's a yes or a no, and then allows you to start picking all the other pieces that you do. So if you offer, like I've got one client that's got 180 partners. I'm like, I wouldn't even know how to, you can't talk about 180 partners in a meeting. So you have to choose 2 or 3 that play. I always say play really nicely together. Choose 2 or 3 that we can sell as a cohesive offering. And then your job is to then figure out what's next. like, what's the next bit we add on? What's the next bit we add on? Because you can't go and saying, hey, we sell 180, we work with 180 partners. Would love to find out how you're currently navigating, your cybersecurity compliance. They'd be like, cool. What do you do? Because and then people will go, here's the list of 180. Tell me which one you'd like to look at. Like, that's not that you've no longer niched. You're now in the cyber industry, but you've no longer niched. So then we've got a niche to either industry or a core message, and then deliver that. And so that's then, like, we go hard on that, which I think is what you said before, and that's why it is so true, isn't it? We've got to really find one and just go hard on it.
Yeah. And I think to that, if you've got 180 partners or 180 service offerings or, whatever you have, I do think if you choose not to niche, which is what I've done, you have to figure out ways to make it easy for people. Actually, I was listening to, I feel like it was a podcast or probably a TikTok or something last week, talking about how, like, if you give people, too many options, only ever give two. Like, just let someone choose between two, always between two. Anything more and it's too much. I was like, yeah, that's actually a good point. But one of the things that I kind of put in, I used to have like a service document. So when someone's like, oh, can you send me, like, do you have a deck or some kind of creds or whatever? And it just felt like this short novel of, like, here's all of the things that I can do for you, and here's some case studies, and here's this and here's this. And it was like, oh, I don't even know where to start. So I was like, okay, how can I make this, like, more digestible for someone, or in a way that helps them understand what is right for them? Because I still want to show them I can do all these things, but I don't just want to send them a deck that's like 30 pages long and they scroll through and they're like, I don't even know where to start. So trying to figure out a way to communicate that. Now, as soon as you go in the deck, first page is like, where are you as a business? Like, haven't even launched yet? Are you just starting out? Are you, 1 year in, blah. And then each section is actually like, here's the services I'd recommend for that stage of business, rather than just giving them everything. And that's actually seemed to have worked quite well. Like, people are like, oh yeah, cool. Yep, I actually do need those 3 things to get started. So I'm kind of giving them, I guess, like what I mentioned earlier, like the diagnosis, like, here you go, here's what, your suggested kind of pack of things are. Can be customized, but that's a good place to start. So I think if you're not going to niche, you still have to make it easy for people to understand and, digest everything you're doing.
And that comes back to, like, if I think of a sales scenario, like at the end, where you've got options, and you said that, give 2. And I would say, like, for me, I would say, if you can, give 1. And then if you need to kind of say, look, I'm on the fence between these 2 and here's why. And then there's psychology around the 3, which you and I, we have packages together, and they've got, we have 3 options, but they scale in options. So it's not necessarily, do you want this or this? They're not very different. It's just, what outcome are you looking to achieve? And then based on that, plus appetite for investment, here's our recommendation. And interestingly, from there, like the research, like I remember reading some research quite a few years ago now around the fact that as an average human, we can only handle 3 pieces of information. And like a superhuman, which is, I think, probably us, Jordan, a superhuman, we can remember 5 things. So for me, I think the 3 definitely works. So I do everything in 3s, and I did everything in 3s before that because I felt like everything in 3s was like a minimum, a middle, a maximum. And then there was more research that I'd read, and it was showing wine lists. And it said that if you've got 3 bottles of wine, no one will choose the cheapest because they don't want to be cheap. No one will choose the most expensive because they're not stupid. This was like what it actually said. So everyone goes for the middle. So what then, like restaurants, and it was showing around like how restaurants decide to price wine, is they often won't put the cheapest wine won't be the cheapest wine. It will often be the middle wine. And actually the cheapest wine might be better than the middle wine, but they know that everyone goes for the middle. So it's such an interesting play because it's all that psychology, isn't it? And around how we make decisions. But then I find, like, when it comes to presenting an option, so that's probably a few stages down after the example you just gave, is that we have to give a recommendation and this I'm talking from a sales perspective, but a business perspective. We have to give a recommendation. And if your recommendation is more than one thing, you have to be able to back it up around a reason. Because if you're the specialist, like for me, I'm the specialist, I need to explain why, as the specialist, I recommend you do this. And it's such, and then when I look at other people's, proposals, and it's got 5 options plus a bonus option, plus a this, plus a this, plus a this, no one's making a decision in that realm, because as the specialist in this, my response to most people that pitch to me, I go, well, you know what you're doing. Which one shall I go for? And I always remember a client saying to me, and I gave him 2 options, and it was because of investment. But I said, look, if you can go for a cheaper one, but in a year, you're going to have to buy either the more expensive one or a second one of the cheaper one. Or if you buy this now, this will keep you for 3 years, and then we'll buy more licensing at the end of 3 years. And he turned to me and he said, do I buy the 7 grand one or the 20 grand one? And I was like, the 20 grand one. And he did. So he just wanted me to tell him what to buy. And that was very early on in my tech sales career. And I think that really helped me get, refine in the options. But I do still have, over the period of time, found myself being like, what shall I choose? And then if I relate it back to when I had the day spa in there as well, like we had facials, and it was, you've got probably like 8 different facials. But when I think about it, no one ever booked the cheapest facial, but I probably didn't apply this logic to that business because it just probably didn't. Like, I can't think that we did 3s, but interesting, because that would have made sense, surely.
Yeah. Who knew? If you had your knowledge then, things probably would have done differently.
I definitely still would have sold it. Let's be honest.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's similar to, the ice cream theory. I don't know if you've heard the ice cream theory. Very similar. No. Where it's, when you go to get an ice cream, say it's $4.50 for 1 scoop, or $5 for 2 scoops, or, $6 for 3 scoops. And you're like, well, I'm going to spend $4.50. Well, what's an extra 50 cents to get a second scoop? And then it's kind of like, oh, if I'm going to spend $5, I may as well spend it. Like, it's, the price is not a big enough variation that you're kind of like, well, if I've already spent that, what's another, X, Y, Z. I feel like it's kind of like, buying a house and stuff. But, if I'm already spending this, what's another this, and dangerous game to play. But yes, no, I agree.
And in that, so I guess that's the really interesting point, the ice cream theory, is that then coming back to that 3-level pricing, is that the recommendation is that it goes from, so let's say if something was 5 grand, the next thing then is 7 grand, and then the next thing is 14,000. So the idea then is that the jump, it doesn't, I mean, I just doubled that. There's no theory around that for anybody listening. There's no theory on that. But if I think of that bit, then they go, oh, well, it's not much of more of a jump, and I'm getting this much more in it. And then on the other end of it is that's a massive jump. But if they need that, do you want to make it so that it feels so big? That then is another point that I tend to look at as well. And so, yes, I think there's always options. And I've never given someone a quote that's 3 options. Like, I will talk through a deck that's got 3 things in it, but then I will then say, look, you're here. Or I wouldn't recommend you go bigger than the lowest option for the first 3 months. And people appreciate that because you're the specialist recommending the niche down service based on what you've understood about them.
I think we need to have another podcast in about pricing and sales and promotion. And this is not even related, and I don't know what you just said that sparked this idea. So in my head, I think when I think about proposals and clients coming through on the niching topic, one thing I will say, and I'm getting better at it, and I will always admit when I'm a work in progress on certain things, not having a niche can sometimes be like a really, really tricky thing when you are getting inbound leads to kind of qualify to be like, okay, does that align? Like, do I want to take that on? Like, you don't really have almost like a set of criteria to say, yes, they're an ideal client for me. It's kind of like, yep, the gates are open, anyone can come in. I think I'm getting better at qualifying people. Like, what I've probably realized is that my niche is nothing to do with size of business or industry. My niche is people. Like, I only want to work with certain people. And the older I get, the wiser I get. When it takes it out of me when I have to work with someone that, not that I don't like, but just that is draining or rude or has unrealistic expectations. Like, it really makes me feel horrible. And so if I had to, if I was like, what actually is my niche? When I get on a call with someone, like, I know straight away whether I'm like, red flag, no, I can't see myself having an ongoing partnership with this person. And so to me, like, that's my filter, is like, have the call, decide, do I want to work with this person? Do I think they'd be a good partner for me? Can I see myself having a nice working relationship? If so, like, I don't care what industry, I don't care what size business you are. Yeah, I'll work with you. So I don't know, maybe I do have a niche. It's nice people. But I think every business has that filter of, obviously no one wants to work with horrible people. But that's probably if I were, I'd say a downside or something to be mindful of if you're saying like, no, I'm just going to keep the floodgates open, is you still need to have some kind of filtering system to be like, how am I going to decide who to take on and who not to take on?
I did a podcast on this just recently around like working out who your core focus, and it was, I built core focus because we implemented the EOS and the entrepreneur operating system last 2 years ago, 18 months ago. And it was great because it's a lot of structure. I love a process. And so that's been great for me and for the business. But within that, we created a core focus around who our ideal clients are. The interesting thing when I run what I mentioned before, replicate ideal clients with my clients for who they're going after. Often it's like them, they're the biggest, they pay the most, this is it. And that comes often from leadership down. When I then say, cool, take away the money, take away how much they've spent, like we can absolutely replicate against that. But think around like how much time did they take to onboard? Were they on the journey? Did they understand it? And I think when you run a business, but also when you are established in sales and you have the luxury of who to say no to, the episode I recorded was around saying no. And I remember the year, I actually did a year where it's like before, like the word of the year was cool. Like this was me. In the back end, nobody knew about it. I didn't publish it anywhere, but I had a year of the no. And the reason why I had the year of the no was that I just found I was saying yes to all these clients because I had a reputation for being supportive and awesome in the industry. And therefore people wanted to come and work. So I started getting these, lots more inquiries through LinkedIn. And it wasn't my business. I worked for somebody, but they were, and I just found that I was saying yes because I was a salesperson. I was like, yes to everything. So I'd say yes. And I would say yes to the $5,000 deal, but I'm working $1 million contract over here as well. Then I would then go, actually, I'm not going to work with people that are draining, that don't follow the process, don't understand the value, aren't prepared to be part of this journey. And then I then started saying no to those. And what happened was my revenue massively increased for what I was bringing in, but my profitability massively increased. And that all came from saying no to the people that didn't align. Now I didn't have a business then. And now having a business is at the beginning, I was like, yes, I'm on my own. I've got no other income than me running this business. And I want it to work and it's got to work. And then once you've done that for a few months, it's exhausting because you're trying to be everything to everybody and there's no boundaries and there's no kind of level of respect yet. And therefore you kind of just wing it until you go, I can't do this anymore, or until you don't like it or hate it. And then you've got to change something. And I think that's coming back to what you're saying, is that you can tell, and there's a lot to be said for your energy around what you're doing, because it's fueled and decided by you and by us as the business leaders. But then also if you're in a business, you also still have the ability, you might not have as much say if you're not in sales, deciding who you say yes and no to. But if your process is long, like a lot of technology is, you've got to go have coffees with them. You've got to build relationships with them. And if they are not your type of person, they are difficult to deal with and they are draining, give them to somebody else. Because as soon as you do that, you open up so much more space for other people. And that's probably where I've come in with niching. And then you've come in from not necessarily niching, but then I think after this conversation, I'd probably say you have niched. Like you've niched in certain areas, but it might not be as like obvious that it's been niched. That would be, do you agree? Like, do you reckon that you might have niched a little bit?
Yes. I just don't know how to articulate how I've niched. Like, I know that I have a filtering system of who my ideal client is. But if you ask me to write that on a piece of paper and say, here's my ideal client, I don't know how to kind of like collectively group. Like I look at the clients that I work with and they're all amazing and they're all so different price points, different services and everything. I don't know what the collective theme of those people are, apart from that they're all great humans. Like that's the collective theme.
Yes.
So I don't know, like if I was doing the exercise with you of like, what's your ideal client?
Fun people.
But it is just, there's people that I know I don't make a huge profit off, but like genuinely, like they are great humans to deal with. And I look forward to our calls and I'm excited by the work. Like I'm like, yes, we've got a session tomorrow. Like, I can't wait to chat to them because it's such good energy. Like to me, that is all, not that I'm like, oh, I don't care about money. Of course I care about money. Of course I want to make money. And that's always going to be a huge thing as well. But like a exciting fun call with a client is more valuable to me than maybe someone who pays double what they do, but it completely, ruins my whole day. And I'm moping around for the rest of the day. So
Yes. Yeah.
that's
I
there you
love that. I think that's a great, I mean, well, I feel like I've won because I feel like, yes, like we've got Jordan, so yeah, she kind of niche, but we don't know how yet. But I reckon either our friend ChatGPT, if we put in all the companies and was like, find a commonality, a common theme within these, I reckon they could do it. And then I was laughing in my head to myself, then thinking that, I wonder if they all drive the same car. Like,
Yeah.
there's something that I reckon there's something super obvious that you will probably never find out, but that there's probably this theme underneath it all and it's like, if you can unlock that, there's your niche.
Yes. All right. That's we need to like put it in the show notes or something. We'll put it into ChatGPT. I'll put all my clients and
We'll add
figure
it
out what
in.
the recurring thread is through them all.
Yes. Awesome. I think we leave it there, but
Oh,
we'll
thank you.
definitely chuck it in the show notes, and then we can see if there's anything more uncovered after this episode. Thanks for chatting, Jordan. It's been awesome to have you here.
No worries. And look, congrats on the defeat. I will admit that maybe I do have a niche after all.
Yay! This is recorded.
I'm not signing anything.
Awesome. Right, let me stop that.